Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is for teachers. And before I get stuck into the detail, I just want to put this out there, and that is to say a massive thank you to all the teachers out there who are stepping out of the comfort zone of presenting in the classroom to presenting online. I know nothing about teaching. I've got nothing but admiration for teachers because I've got kids and I'm in the thick of home learning right now. So a huge thank you to all of you that are still educating our children, even though you're having to do it online. But I wanted to make this video because even though I know nothing about teaching, I know everything about communicating and communicating online. So these are my top tips for teachers when it comes to having to deliver your classroom online, whether it's on Zoom or Teams. My first tip is a really simple one, but it makes such a difference, and that is add 10% more energy. I mean by that, just giving your voice, your delivery more energy, just faking it. You may be feeling so kind of tired from doing all these online teachings, but just adding 10% more energy to it, it makes such a difference to the kids. It gets rid of that monotone style of presenting and it pricks their ears up. It makes them listen. So 10% more energy makes a huge difference. My second tip really is the same advice that I would give any business meeting, and that is create a set of rules from the start. So what do I mean by that? Well, for instance, I mean right from the start to say, I'm going to mute everybody apart from myself. If you have a question, don't raise your hand and don't unmute yourself, but use the raise hand function, for example, that you've got on Teams. So set the rules, and then the important part, reinforce them every single time. Yes, you'll feel like a broken record, but I found anyway with the online teachings that I've seen from my kids' school, it's made a massive difference. So even though the teacher is having to say the same thing at the start of every lesson, it just reinforces it for the kids. My third tip, another really important one, but it is to mute everybody. The technology that we're using in the classroom at the minute for all this online learning is sound-based technology. Now, sometimes if you're the host, you may not be aware that other people on the call, so the kids, have unmuted themselves because you're the host of that call. But believe me, if just one or two children unmute themselves, for everybody else watching, they cannot hear anything. I mean, the noise is just terrible. Because it's sound-based technology, it tends to pick up on all the background noise. That's why you find all that screeching and stuff. It's just awful. So make sure as a teacher, you know how to mute everybody. And in particular, you know the shortcut keys, which I'll pop just here. My fourth tip really relates to all those questions that I know the children have to ask you. And it's to make sure that if they have a question, they use the hand up icon. So that's on Teams, for instance. They use that instead of interrupting you. And I would just reinstate that rule, as I said, at the start of every class, and make sure you always adhere to it. So if somebody does interrupt you, you can cut them down straight away to say, okay, great, you need to use the hand up function and I will answer questions at the end. It just stops you getting interrupted all the time. My fifth tip, I think, will really help you, and it also is something for the kids to enjoy as well. And that is, in every class, I would assign a technical manager to help you. Now, your technical manager is a member of the class and they are the only people who are allowed to unmute themselves. So for instance, you can say, George, I would like you to be my technical manager today. So George, can you unmute yourself? So now it's just you and George who are able to speak. You then, for instance, want to share your screen and you might say, okay, George, what can you see? So George is telling you what he can see And when he can see what you want to share, he's letting you know. Now, that's just one example. And I'm not saying you let George be unmuted the whole way through. But what I'm saying is choose one child during each class to be your technical manager so that you can go to them to make sure, for instance, that everybody can see what you're sharing on screen. And I think that's great for the kids because it gives them something to do. It lets them interact with you. It feels nice as well, obviously, when you're chosen to be that person, but it's a great aid for you, okay? So have a technical manager, use one of the kids, get them involved. My next tip is really about engagement. And I think one of the things that you can do to get engagement is just the classic thumbs up. So if you're unsure if everybody's got that, you can literally just put that question out there, right, with a show of hands, a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up if that made sense, or if you understand what you've got to do, and get the kids to do that. And I think from the kids' point of view, anything like that where you're getting them to show their thumbs, to wave, any kind of interaction where they're not speaking, but they're moving, makes a huge difference, just to the fact that it will keep them awake and keep them entertained. And I would try to add elements like that, like give me a thumbs up, give me a wave, every kind of 10 minutes at least, because that really, really just wakes them up. If anything, it just kind of brings them back to focus. But it does make a huge, huge difference to them. And that point leads nicely on to my next point, which again is about interaction. As a parent, as a teacher, I'm sure you're feeling the same. You start to worry, if you think about it too much, about how long we can sustain this online working. It's very, very difficult, and I totally appreciate that. And I think because of that, we have to try and build in more elements of interaction. And I think nice ideas like mugs on Monday, for instance. So on a Monday, all the kids turn up to the lesson, and as they join in to registration or whatever it is, they've got their mug, and it's whatever mug that they choose to use, but it's something fun. And again, it doesn't necessarily involve the talking and the noise, but it's something that's engaging. Another idea for a bit of engagement could be some yoga. So getting the children to have a really, really good stretch, getting them to have a move around. Another idea, which I think is really nice, is getting them to go outside. So obviously not during your class, but maybe for you to say, after registration, right before our English lesson or before the next time I see you, I want you to go out into the garden and I want you to bring something back that you think is really interesting. And obviously we're talking about leaves and like whatever else, but getting them to actually go outside to get something, to step away from their laptop, I think makes a big difference to them. And again, it's a nice talking point that maybe you could ask one or two children to unmute themselves to talk about the element that they found. But really that tip is all about just trying to add elements of engagement into the virtual classroom. And my final point again is a little bit about engagement, and that is to really ask the kids how they're feeling. And an easy way to do this when you don't want to unmute everybody is to get them to put a number on a piece of paper. So to say to them, right, if 1 is not feeling great at all and 5 is amazing, how are you feeling today? And get them to write it down. And just being able to do that as a kid, I think when you're faced with all this online learning, it makes you feel like you've got a voice when really they've got no option at the moment but to do this stuff. And just doing that, I think, lets them obviously let an adult or somebody else just know how they're feeling. But then it's a great opportunity to take one of the other tips, for instance, and say, okay, we're all feeling a little bit, let's see if we can up that energy level. We're going to do a quick 2-minute bit of yoga. So you're using some of those interactive tips to just get the engagement, get some, smiles on faces, and just try and up the energy all the time. But those are my tips. I really hope that it helps. I just want to say one final time, thank you so much. Everybody at the moment is working outside of their comfort box, but I hope some of that helps you when it comes to some of your online lessons in the future. As always, please do subscribe to this channel. If you have any questions below about anything that I've talked about, then please do let me know. And if there are any things that would help in terms of online classroom content, then let me know and I'll see if I can make any videos to help with that. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please do subscribe and I'll see you next time.